Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV, powered by Harrington Starr, global leaders in financial technology recruitment. Head over to harringtonstarr.com where you'll be able to see some of the greatest jobs in financial technology recruitment across the world. You'll also be able to find a host of insight to help you grow your brand, your team, your network and your career. You can see the latest financial technology salary survey. You'll be able to download the issue of the Financial Technologist focusing on the appetite for disruption. And our latest top 1% workplace awards will be out at the end of this year. If you work for a company that's a great place to work in financial technology, we want to hear from you. Enjoy the show, and I'll see you soon. Hello, and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled. This is someone who I've been wanting to have on the show for a long time. I recently interviewed him for the top 1% Workplace Awards in our Financial Technologist magazine and was absolutely bowled over by the passion, the story, and everything he was talking about with how to build a great workplace. So I thought, right, I can't keep that just to myself. I wanted to share that with the world. And it is my enormous pleasure to introduce you guys to Trever Evans from TS Imagine. Trevor, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Toby. And, very happy to be here as well. I think we have a great story. I love sharing it. So hopefully this goes over quite well.
Well, here we go. I'm sure it will. Like I said, it was genuinely one of those ones where I was absolutely thrilled listening to it. I was taking mad notes. On a selfish basis, every year we do the top 1% Workplace Awards. I get to speak to a whole load for a month of people of really interesting businesses who are creating great workplaces, which is a great passion of mine. And I steal loads of notes, and I stole loads off you. So thank you for that. First and foremost. So look, lots to dive into about culture, about people, about growth, about all of the story. And as you said, you've got a great story. So we're going to go through that in a minute. But before we do, Trevor, can you introduce yourself, what you do for TS Imagine, your story, and a little bit about what TS Imagine does as well?
Yeah, sure. So it's a little bit interesting. Trever Evans, I'm Chief People Officer for TS Imagine. In terms of Chief People Officers, I have a bit of a different background, to be quite honest. So, I came out of university. My master's degree is actually in financial engineering. And I went to New York City to pursue the pursuit of happiness, just like everybody does. So I went up there, wanted to get into the, financial industries, sat down, went through a few interviews, and I happened to meet this company, Imagine Software. So remember, this was 17 years ago, and one of my first 3 interviews I think I took in New York City. When I got there, I met with the president, I met with the CEO. Those were the only 2 people. And granted, this was for a help desk role. But Toby, let me clarify a little bit on that side. When you're talking about the help desk for a risk management system, my first question was from a client, like my 3rd week on the job: how do you dollar nuke this convertible bond? Something I never even learned through my master's program. And so I really took at that time to really educating myself, because the world of finance, especially in financial engineering, is massive. But one thing led to another. I made a couple more progressions, in my career at Imagine Software, and I got to the point where I was actually managing people, and a pretty significant amount of people at the time. And an interesting thing happened to me at that point. I found out the people I was hiring were smarter than me. Which is always a great thing,
from right?
From a manager's point of view. Yeah, you want to develop the best workforce you can. And at that point, I really pivoted my career, and I focused more on managing career development and the growth of the people underneath me. So I kind of took off the doer hat and got more into, really helping to build the best individuals I can. And I continued to do that for years and continued to take on, more and more, I guess, department growth. They were sliding more sort of people under me. And then about 2 years ago, we went through a merger with a trading screen. And that's when everything kind of changed. At the time, I was running professional services for TS Imagine. That's where they had kind of structured me, and we wanted to expand some of our growth plans in professional services. And we went through that for a period of about 6 months. And I had the pleasure one day of getting a call from our CEO, Rob Flatley, just to mention CEO of the Year, just getting to him a couple of weeks ago. Andrew Morgan and a couple others from our exec team, where they had asked, would you like to be a member of our executive team as the chief people officer? And so, it was interesting. I don't have the typical human resources background,
Yeah.
but a lot of the things that went into the human capital side of the business is what I'm passionate about. So, I truly have
And that was completely
people.
not engineered. It wasn't something you were gunning for. It was them seeing the value in you, being able to take that sort of role on.
Yeah, 100%. I was happy with running professional services. I was, for lack of a better term, in my PowerPoints, putting
Yeah,
together my slides, what clients we're going to target, what sort of growth we wanted, our KPIs, all of that for the team. I was there. I was moving forward when I got that phone call.
incredible. I'm honestly, I've not heard that sort of story before of that sort of movement into a CPO, a chief people officer role within it. And I love the sort of vision. I guess it ties in a lot with what what and how you guys are running the business, and it makes a lot of sense, right? When you talk about those passions and the development of people, and someone who's been there for the amount of time that you have, there's no one who's going to be better at knowing the DNA of the business, right? And be passionate about the DNA of the business.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at TS Imagine as a whole, the merger was perfect because you're looking at best in class systems across trading and risk, but nobody really does both well. There are
Mm,
some people out there that try to do it, but we feel, at least on both sides of the spectrum, that we are the best of the best. And so bringing those two companies together, through the merger just made sense. And with my background on the product side, I think it helps me along a lot of the human capital functions. Like if we're recruiting, I can almost be that technical side to
mm,
where we can reduce some of the time our managers need to spend because I understand risk management in and out. So if that's a
mm,
role we're really trying to secure, when I'm out talking to it, and my one of my big passions is a graduate program.
mm.
I love growing people from entry all the way up through the organization. It's just something, it makes me smile. Like I can't even, I guess, it's hard for me to even convey how much, excitement that gives me when I see somebody that went from somebody straight out of school to, for example, somebody we just placed as our head of APAC after
Wow.
7 years. 7 years, the career growth. I'm never going to take any credit for, what he went through, because he is an incredible individual. But those sort of things just make me smile. And I
It's great to
think,
see, isn't it? I know exactly what you mean with that.
yeah, yeah. And I think when you have that product background, when you have that discipline, all those different things allow you to help build. And when you really are passionate about people, the culture just kind of follows, from that point.
It's very interesting that. So I've spoken a lot recently about the role of people coming from product, and the amount of people who've moved into CEO roles in startups and businesses. And I think the role of the CEO has a much more product orientated background from it, because people are looking at problems and solutions and customer focused, et cetera, around it. To see that from a people perspective also makes an awful lot of sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always thought, if you find somebody that's talented and you give them the experiences that they need to grow, the sky really is the limit. And I
Mm,
think you're right, Toby. When you look at that product function, it's such a blend of everything.
mm.
And so you're being exposed to the overall business from every different angle. And, you know, I guess I'll have to say it because truly something that has always come from me. An organization is the people.
Mm.
And so if you combine all of that together, if you look at it holistically, you have people that are being exposed to a lot of different angles of a business, but also you're developing those skill sets. It truly, it makes 100% sense. Like there is a big correlation to being able to do that and being successful at, other roles or different parts of organizations.
I'm an unashamed sort of soapbox shouter about the sort of significance of it. I believe that there's no CEO on the planet who's not going to say that they're that people are central to their business. And I think sometimes it can be pushed down pushed down the road a little bit and sort of dealt with as a sort of byproduct function. And I love businesses that sort of put their people at the center of their whole strategy, which is I think is a sort of easy throwaway to do, but it's not often seen. And my interpretation from the outside in looking at your business is that's absolutely where. And we'll come on to that in a minute because I want to talk about how you've maintained that through what I think is a really interesting period that we'll come on to in a second. But I also want to talk about TS Imagine and give people a little bit of context to the business. So give us a quick overview, Trevor, of TS Imagine and what you guys are doing at the moment, because there's some pretty cool stuff, right?
Yeah, there absolutely is. So, I touched a little bit on the product side and, that it just made sense, to come together. But, from an organizational overview, we're about 450 people spread across the world. We're in all the major hubs. We do business basically everywhere, with a large growth rate that has happened over the past couple of years. So we continue to expand, we continue to grow. Yeah, we make products that solve a lot of different challenges, whether it be trading challenges, risk challenges, portfolio management challenges. We have multiple different product lines that can basically fit any user, big or small, from the biggest banks in the world to a family office.
Yeah.
We have solutions for all of that. And internally we have a lot of expertise as well. High average years of tenure across the
Mm,
workforce.
definitely.
A lot of people take passion in what they're doing. They want to stay around. They want to see what we're going to become. And from the perspective of the team as well, an incredibly strong leadership team.
Mm, mm,
I had mentioned Rob Flatley earlier, our CEO, that has years of experience building multiple different businesses. We brought in Andrew Morgan, that's running, CRO president, helping us to expand. Kate Peachway, our CFO, is a new addition that came in. And is helping, to get everything aligned on the finance side and helping us to continue to push that growth. And the rest of the team as well. One of the interesting bits is a lot of the executive team also has roots in Trading Screen or Imagine software. So not just myself, but our CTO and our chief strategy officer both were CTOs and CEOs of prior businesses. So they bring a lot of that experience in. And, rounding it out, we have our chief marketing officer that's, just phenomenal, years of experience. And the gentleman I was talking about earlier, Sim, who runs APAC, also a member. And then last but not least, we have Spencer Lee, who has an interesting story. Our chief markets officer was actually a client of Trading Screen.
I love these stories.
And he loved the product so much. I remember when I was telling you about my professional services role, we were getting demos, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth here in a little bit. We were getting demos of the different sites. How do I learn more about here? Or how do I learn more about here? And one of the demos that we were given was from a client, from Spencer. While he was still a client, he came and showed me how he used our system, or at the time it still was kind of Trading Screen to me at the time, how he used them to book fixed income orders.
Yeah.
electronically. And it just, it was so cool. And bringing him on board, I think really helped to round out the group. And you could tell that experience and passion just flows through to the organization, to
It's
everybody
incredible
below us.
validation, isn't it, of your product when you've got someone there who likes it. So yeah, the Victor Kiam, they like it so much they they join the company or buy
I,
support the company around.
yeah, I mean, what else do you need? It's about the best compliment you can get.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
I
And
love you
I
guys
love
so
I
much.
love the fact that what you said there as well about the sort of shaping the team and that sort of leadership group. Because when I've been talking through this and sort of trying to find the sort of golden thread around the best workplaces in the sector, that sort of skill of the senior team, I think, so important to be able to to go through and I think it's a very open team. I think it's a very driven team. It's a very passionate team. And that comes through from the socials and on what you see on LinkedIn and everything else through there to the conversations you have through to where they're at and the sort of very clear we're in this together that you see all the running all the way through the business. And again, that's an external view of what you see from the inside, and I think that's validated from what you've been talking about. I think there's also an interesting piece from that team that's been put together there with investors into the business that seem very well aligned to you as an organization as well. And I think sometimes when I was talking beforehand about the sort of really interesting situation you come from, you've got three sort of things that all happen together that I think sometimes can be a really difficult cultural equation to put together. Really skilled, powerful investors who've got a driven and strong track record in terms of where they want to go and what they want to do with the business. Then you've got a story of pretty stunning and rapid growth over a short period over the last 2 years. The sort of headcount growth, the geographic growth, every single aspect of it has been pretty strong. To put on top of that, you've got a merger of two businesses, and all of those three independently are things which people struggle to deal with as organizations, and there can be catastrophic results off the back of it. Yet, with everything that you've got, and potentially it's the secret sauce is that sort of group at the top of it there. But you guys have thrived and seem to be taking every single step and managing those sort of three potential banana skins into absolute beacons of strength. And I think that's a wonderful sort of story. So I wanted to unpack that a little bit and get your sort of take as to when we've seen so many stories of companies struggle with just one of those three things happening at the same time. I want to know how you guys have thrived with all three of it, and through the chaos comes an incredible story where, as I say, all the rhetoric I have is of people there who've really enjoyed the journey.
Yeah, and it's the perfect lead because I purposely did this. One of our other leaders, our COO, Tom Badinsky, he came in and was put in the position probably about 18 months ago. And I'd want to talk about this angle, I guess, from the very, very start. And to me, that's a culture. And you've hit on it a few times. I know I've touched on it. The merger. Whenever you merge, to be quite honest, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's an uncertainty of what's going to be happening on the other side. How are things going to come together? But first
Up
and
and down,
foremost,
etc., etc.
yeah. But first and foremost, it's what did they do? And we had a good idea of Trading Screen. We knew who they were, and they knew who Imagine Software was. But that doesn't mean that we're playing with each other's toys each day. And so myself and Tom sat down and we really started to talk about it. And one of the things that came out of it is almost like a motto. It's something that I like to stress whenever I can. Have you helped someone today?
Mm.
Just a simple phrase. Have you helped someone today? When you think of kind of everything that you mentioned, a merger, a growth, all of the different things that have been happening within the business, well, what does that require? That
Mm.
requires people communicating and collaborating, plain
Mm.
and simple. So if you want to develop a great workplace, what do you do? Well, why don't you start with just coming up with something that makes sense? Have you helped somebody today?
Mm.
I think of this also from a work perspective, but also just being a good human.
Mm.
Like, every day
It's so often the simplest part of that, isn't it? Just be normal,
it's
be good.
yeah, just be good. Have you helped somebody? But if you want to learn about something, you're going to have to go to somebody, and they're going to have to take time out of their busy day, because as you said, we're expanding, we're growing. It's not like somebody has a couple hour slots of openness in their calendars. So when you go to somebody, we really want them to understand that if somebody comes to you for help, help them,
Mm.
because you're making us better as a team. Take a little bit of time out of your day to really help someone. So we drove that, from the very start. And then Tom and myself worked together to operationalize, the entire way we recruited. Because if we break it down a little bit further, it's again, we go back to the people. The people make the organization, that grow, that promotes all the growth, that helps us to get to the goals and the KPIs our investors are looking for. So how do we recruit then? Well, we sat down, and maybe one day I'll be able to show it to you, Toby.
I look forward
It's
to it.
kind of internal, but I think it was about a 40 slide deck presentation that we gave to all of our hiring managers, where we sat down and said, this is how we recruit at TS Imagine. Like, when you're going through hyper growth, these are the things you own. These are the things we own. Here's how we're going to try to find the best talent in the market. Here's how you interact with recruiters. Here's how you interact with, and we literally sat down and process based the entire thing. And so, as we mentioned before, we grew at 176 heads, I think, off the top of my head,
Yeah, it's
in one year.
incredible.
In 1 year.
Yeah,
And it was a team effort, but it went back to, have you helped somebody today?
yeah,
Have you really put the effort in to help that person? Do you know somebody? Internal referrals are a huge part of our organization.
yeah. Which they should do.
So
There's a friend of mine who calls it making your business a magnet for talent. And I think being a magnet for talent is where you have people there who are always going to be the best proponents. Going back to Spencer Lee, as you were talking about earlier on,
mhm,
someone there who joins the company because it's so impressed and embedded into the business. But it's also the relationships that he'll have had through that process that entwine him inevitably into that business. And I think when you can utilize your people as your magnet, that's when you're really cooking, right? And especially you talk about 176 people from a business that wasn't 2,000 people to start off with, through that sort of process. It's really interesting. And I think
mhm.
what it also sheds an interesting light onto, in that, where process has to be part of that jigsaw. But the other part of it is when you're going through that sort of phase, and you've had two tribes coming together as one, first and foremost, in the two
Yep.
businesses. But then you also have this sort of them and us, like the people who were there beforehand. You mentioned about the tenured people within the business, and there's a lot of people who've been there a long time. And then this massive cohort of people who've never been met before. I'm always fascinated, particularly when it's so geographically spread. And I know your numbers in Canada were particularly enormous, weren't they, in terms of that going from something to nothing to something very, very quickly over there. It's
Right.
really, really interesting to me about how you keep that cultural DNA of a business, that's still developing its DNA by knitting two companies together at the same time. I find it a fascinating thing. And as in your role, sort of being the sort of guardian of that must have been an interesting challenge, right?
It is. It is. Once again, I have to go back and just be so thankful of our people. Like,
Mm,
we have professionals that wanted to come together. Individuals. That when you wake up in the morning, you have choices that you can make. Like, you could be challenging that day, or you can choose to come together. And as a workforce, I think we did that. And one of the other things, um, offsites, bringing
mm,
people together, I think is an incredibly important topic, because uh you're much more likely to work with somebody, in my opinion, after you've shaken their hand,
mm,
than over a call, or
mm.
something like that. So yes, to address your question specifically, for example, our Montreal office, I think it went from 8 people to 85,
Yeah,
something like
phenomenal.
that. We were rotating in, even on the executive layer,
Yeah,
probably weekly. just so there was a presence so people could see the excitement, what we were trying to accomplish. It really gave everyone a chance to ask the questions, to get the answers. And we continue to do that. We're very open, town halls, happening all the time, making sure our managers are having checkpoints with everybody underneath them so that we continue to grow. And, I hate to say it, but it just goes back to communication. It goes
Mm,
back to collaboration.
yeah.
Work together, talk, and you'll get there.
I think that's been a big theme of the interviews that I've done on this workplace awards, where you're seeing people who just know that the sort of script of leadership is about communication and openness and trust, etc., and transparency. And you see people who see that as a checklist and sort of pay attention to it, but don't really pay attention to it, and they don't create the opportunities and environments for that to go through. And then there's companies there who live and breathe it and think about it and make sure that there is this sort of open kimono sort of to how things are going. And I think what's very, very interesting to me as you were saying that, and I was thinking about sort of my experience and knowledge is the miles that are put in and the travel that's put in by your C-suite into the geographies is phenomenal, right? And that's and I think you could very easily have people sat there in their hubs, in their ivory towers, and sort of allow things to get on and trust the management, etc., to do that. And I don't think this is about a lack of trust. I think it's about being there and being visible and saying we're on this mission. So I'm a big believer in mission and led businesses, and I know there's a sort of growth pattern. I know there's a lot of tub thumping about the scale of opportunity that's out there for the businesses. I know that that there's this sort of enormous potential in terms of where the business can go still, from the size and shape that it is at the moment to really start to compete. And I think that's to me, that's a super strength that you guys have in the ability to communicate that message and get people hyped and amped and thoroughly bought into the potential of what's out there still.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at it, we already have best in class sort of platforms, but just an example, and I'm sure if you go on like our LinkedIn page or something like that, you're going to see a lot of information. But um, you know, putting a product hat on for a second, if I could,
Yeah.
look at like fixed income electronification and where we're at in that space right now and how big that market could be. I mean, if you look and you can go back and do research, what happened through the same evolution of equities. There is so much opportunity,
Mm.
from a regulatory point of view. If you're looking at risk management, just think about how quick things change. And, one of the great things about our solution in regards to that, we can react to regulatory changes in the drop of a pin,
Mm.
because we've built such a flexible system that we can stand something up for somebody extremely quickly. And so when you look at those sort of things, that just continues to add on to the story. And when you look at our booking numbers, when you look at our growth and things like that, it's shown in the marketplace. Like,
Yeah.
you can actually see it happening. So when you start with the people and you add the product and you bring everything together, you have strong leadership, you have a good internal culture, you're all kind of striving towards the same goal. You can do great things, absolutely great things in
And you
business.
are doing it. You can see
Yeah.
see that happening as well. I'm interested in that because this is despite various headlines, etc., it remains a competitive marketplace for the sort of people you're looking for. That is I say it all the time that I think good good people within financial technology across most marketplaces are going to have 3-4 offers every single time they go out to marketplace. It's just the fact of where it is. It's competitive, and no matter what the macroeconomics are in the situation, good people will always be in premium. And you guys are looking to attract the best of the best to continue this sort of thing at scale.
Right.
So I'm always interested in this. This is a question we asked last year in the 2022 Top 1% Workplace Awards, and we spared you this time out. But it's a question here, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm always really fascinated about this because I think it's a difficult question to answer. But I think the company's there, and I'm guessing if I'm a betting man that you'll do this one, and you kind of alluded to it already. But I'm really interested when someone says, right, I have an offer from TS Imagine and I've got two competing offers, all at similar sort of levels with good businesses, because realistically, it's easy when it's a company there that's not got the same sort of thing. But there's some good businesses out there who will be competing for very similar sort of talent to you. I'm interested about how you sort of pitch that, Trevor, and how you say, right, TS Imagine is the inevitable choice for the best talent in the industry to join. What makes you guys stand out, and why would people choose you over other offers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer to that is the last about 20 minutes. uh, but no, to kind of wrap it up, and you're right, I have to have this conversation a lot of times, but when you look at what we're trying to accomplish, when you look at us all rowing the same direction, going towards the same sort of goals, I don't know if there's a better opportunity anywhere. We are both at the cutting edge of technology. So you're going to come in and you're going to learn things, but also we're not your traditional sort of startup. Like both of these companies were around for 25 years. So when you combine both of those things, you're going to come in when you're looking at like career growth, you're going to be learning new things. You're going to have opportunities to continue to grow. But the business as a whole is also, just going to whole new levels. And typically when I look at those competing offers, they aren't able to offer that. It's somebody who's coming in and maybe they're going to work on archaic technology, or maybe they're going to work in a market where 3%, 4% is good, things like that. That's not who we are. Like, you're coming into an environment that is compelling. I mean, the story is so compelling, but also your ability to help impact change is dramatic. And that's what we're looking for. We're really looking for change agents that will come in and say, I know why we need to do this and I can help you get there. And so it becomes an easy story to tell at that point, Toby.
It definitely is. And I love the fact it's so adaptable to the various different areas as well, because I've been saying to people through this, I think what's a great place for salespeople isn't necessarily the same things that make it a great place for technologists.
Yep.
And the same for products, and the same for all different areas of a business. And I think what you've got there in the story is something that's compelling for everyone, because you've got that sort of talent density in the business. People as technologists want to come in there and they want to be interested. They're interested in working on challenging projects with up-to-date technology, which moves markets, which does something different, but be able to look left and right of them and learn things from the people that are around them. Nailed on with you guys. They want to work with a place that has sort of clarity and story and flexibility and leadership there that are going to listen, and opportunities for them to be able to grow and develop within. Perfect. In sales, it's about scale of market. It's about, right, am I selling a product here that's going to be, because it can be the best place in the world, but if I've got no one to sell to, that's a problem for me, right? So it's like, where do I go and how do I deal with it? And I've got people there that give me clarity, task clarity, role clarity about what I'm doing. And I think that the really interesting thing for me in the backup to the story is there's a business here that I think can tick a whole load of boxes for people. So when I was doing the interview with you and talking about, and look, I say this on the basis that we haven't had word back from the judges yet. Since it's, I think we're about 3 days away from hearing back there. I'd be stunned if this wasn't something that had really serious contention of being up on the podiums in the categories you went into, because I think it's so well thought out and so passionate and so well put together that I had to, as I say, take this across and move it into something there which we shared on a wider basis, because the interviews that we do just get seen by the judges who all signed NDAs, but this is something there which I just thought was magnificent, something I wanted to share with everyone. So I'm going to move into a couple of last questions for you, because as I said, this would disappear very, very quickly, and true to form, we've moved down that sort of category very fast.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. I know we've spoken about a lot of things, over the last half hour or so. I know we've spoken about the story. I know we've spoken about where you're going, what you guys have done, etc., etc. And we've spoken about leadership, and we've spoken about people, and we've spoken about all these different areas around what you're doing. But if you were to sat there and you're speaking to an audience there and you're saying, right, they're struggling with their culture. They're struggling to think of themselves as a workplace. They've seen some attrition in the business and they're saying, right, this is how I want to make myself a great place to work, a top 1% workplace. What would you say are sort of three or four, five brief tips that you'd say to say that this is some of the things to put right to the top of your agenda to create the sort of culture that you and the team have been able to provide over there?
Yeah. So I'm going to put a little bit of my math hat on for a second.
Go back to your
I
roots. It's where it started, right?
I think you first have to measure it. So you need to look at things like your engagement and stuff like that, because I think you want your employees to be able to have a say in what's
Yeah,
going well, um, where things can improve and things, all of those different natures, because a lot of times your best resources is the entire team. And
yeah,
so I would make sure that you're measuring what is important to your people. And then off of that, you really want to respond. If you need to develop some tools that helps with like communication. Again, I will be 95 years old, probably playing golf at the time, and communication and collaboration will still be words I use every single day of my life. But you want to understand maybe where you're falling down in some of those situations, because what I've seen is a lot of times when workforces get a little bit out of sync, it's because they're not together. They don't really understand where you're going, or how to get there and things like that. And I think that that's a big focus as well. So if you look at measurement, you look at communicating, collaborating, actually really listening, then you have to action. Um,
yeah,
and what I found best is specifically if you're someone like us that might be growing in different regions and you don't necessarily have full leadership teams in each of those spots, develop them,
yeah.
develop a leadership team, there. So I think that
And
that's
you've seen
something
the
that we
trust that you've given in that already, right? As well.
yeah, exactly. So the more you can do that, and then really focus on your people, help them to grow, help them to get the help they need to be successful in their jobs. So you want to focus on career progression. You want to focus on sharing both new and old ideas.
Mm,
In our particular situation, that where the first line of code was written 28 years ago, I think, or something like that, a lot
incredible,
of
isn't
this
it?
is old news. But you really want to go back. I know what we do is our product team gives demos
Yeah.
to the entire workforce. And so you want people to be able to see, express, and grow through those different things that are being introduced to them. So fundamentally, that's what I like to focus on.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to ask you a penultimate question, which is, I love the idea of culture is one of those funny words, isn't it? And people know it and breathe it, etc., etc. But I think people struggle sometimes to articulate it. And if you were to describe the culture at TS Imagine, how would you go about that? What would be the badge that you put on the TS Imagine culture?
So
I told you I'd throw you a couple of things out there you had no preparation for. So sorry to do a big one there for you.
well, this is going to go both ways, Toby. I invented a little word that I know a lot of people are going to get a kick out of. Uh, and it's actually on our recruiting video that we have in house right now. But the culture is very FinTech, but I also like to think of it as fun tech. But in all seriousness, you're looking at a culture of innovation.
Yeah,
You really are, but there's no reason why you can't come together and have fun doing that. Like, we're not that startup that
yeah,
is you know trying to grow 1 billion miles an hour and maybe they don't exactly know what they're doing, and things like that. We're a well established two well established companies that happen to be brought together to try to disrupt, to try to innovate, to try to do all of those things. So from the culture, we want people to show up to work and really enjoy what they're doing. I mean, we want people to help someone today, but we also want them to enjoy what they're doing. But I think if I look at the overall kind of goal of our culture, it is to continue to disrupt, to continue to innovate, and
Yeah.
we want people to work together towards those goals.
Absolutely love that. I love the idea of an innovative fun tech as well, because it's I think fun's one of those sort of dirty words which people don't think you should be using in corporate sort of parlance. But to me, it's absolutely at the core of it. You spend an awful lot of time at work,
Yeah.
and I think during that sort of period, you should be able to, and there's the old adage of making sure you love what you do to become great at it. And I think it's so far underrated from what people talk about in their normal sort of parlance. And I love the fact that you brought that to the fore. So, yeah, great answer to the question. So the final thing I'm going to ask you is just about what you're looking for. So look, you guys have been doing some monumental growth. You've attracted some amazing people into the business. Who should be reaching out to you? Who should be getting involved in TS Imagine, and what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so all of our openings are on our corporate website. So you can go to tsimagine.com and find what we currently have open. And, truly, I've mentioned a few characteristics of people um, that have always stuck out to me. And those are people that are change agents, that are looking for something, that are inquisitive, that they come in and they're looking at how can I make things better. On top of that, being a good teammate.
Mm,
We're really looking for good people to join the organization, to come in to help us through this growth. And if you are somebody out there that is like, I do want to work at a company that is growing the way that they're growing, that provides the opportunities in the marketplace that they provide, that wants to see my career progression continue to go, that's who we're looking for. And so we're open doors to everyone, wanting to come in. But that's ultimately, I'm going to look at passion. I'm going to look at all of that, not only just the skill sets, because we want to continue to grow this the right way.
yeah.
And so that's where
Absolutely
we're at.
agree. Absolutely agree. Well, listen, they say time flies when you're having fun, and I've been terrible at keeping score on that side of it, because I couldn't cut you off in your prime. It was absolutely brilliant, and the same feeling I have. I've been sort of suppressing a smile all the way through this, because it's just so much my kind of thing. I
Right.
love hearing that sort of excitement. I love hearing that passion. I love hearing the story. I love seeing people do great things in business, and with a people first, people centric part to it. So, Trevor, it's been nothing other than an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all the wisdom and the story and everything in between. I loved it. I didn't expect that sort of that sort of background from you. We hadn't gone into that in the past, and it's fascinating. So I got something even more than I anticipated from doing this show. So thanks so much for coming on. It's been brilliant having you in there. I can't wait to meet you in person out in the States in some stage soon, I'm sure. And I really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you. My pleasure. And it's always good catching up, Toby.
Definitely is. And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.